Okay, so this little teaching thing is, or chat number 32, which is probably more like 52. I haven't numbered them right. Is called the Songs of Sinai. And the reason why I call that is because what we're going to do is, it's impossible to talk about all of the high holidays in one session because it's monumental, the subject matter. But what I want to do now is explain a bit about what a Sinai tune is. And that's why I call it Songs of Sinai. And Sinai means, if you've heard of me, and you may have not heard of this term, but the term Sinai tune refers to much of the music that is part and parcel of the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur services. And they are, all these tunes, all of them are Ashkenazic, created by the Ashkenazic German community of mostly of southern Germany and Bavaria and the Lower Rhine and the Alsace-Lorraine area. And these tunes were, I'm going to say, created. They weren't really composed as we understand it, in the medieval times. So we're talking the 11th, 12th centuries. And a lot of these tunes, most of them come from specifically the Roman Catholic sources, initial sources, which we can also argue that those Roman Catholic sources have come from synagogal chants from before them. So it's not, just as easy, and that it comes from those Roman Catholic sources. So let's start by having a little shofar competition. How about that? That'll last about a minute. And, the listening to the shofar for me is a very purifying experience. If you don't have to think of anything. You just listen to the sound. And it for me, it demonstrates a kind of cut in what had happened previous and a kind of a transformation into something new. And obviously, that is endemic of what Rosh Hashanah and the Yamim Noramim are in the course of the year. So let's relax. We will be given somewhat of a light-handed opening at this lecture, and then we will move on. So here is the shofar competition.
She is the president and CEO of Salud Enterprise.
1 second. 1 second.
No, we don't have. Late Saturday, and then when it was the power outage.
Okay, now we're good. I apologize about that, and we start now again. I'm not exactly sure how to start this. Let's try this. Oh, here we are. Okay, so now I am going to share as far as I can find where I'm. Oh, Paul, I might need you to come here because I'm not sure what I'm doing. If you can hear me. Just take a couple seconds. I'm not sure.
I'm on my way.
What I'm not getting the yeah. Can you put me on Zoom? I have no idea. I'm on it, but I don't see the screen. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, thanks. There we go. Okay, so now let's start again. That was my fault because I had the CNN thing, the news on, and that interfered with our chauffeur competition. So here we go.
Joseph, we're not hearing anything. We heard a few shofar toots and that was it.
Oh, you didn't hear the rest of it?
No,
Okay, let's try something with this. See if this works. Let's try again now. Okay, now tell me, Debbie, if you could tell me if you don't hear it, that would be great, okay? We'll try it one more time. This is like a test run for the rest of it.
heard a note and then it stopped. Heard another second of a note.
I don't hear anything now.
Nothing. Heard that.
That's why Paul's here.
Got it.
All better.
So I hope that that sound test went okay and we're hearing everything correctly. But I
Yes.
want to now continue the lighthearted start of this little program, and let's have what I call, well, actually, before we do that, I want to explain, I'm going to talk about 5 specific tunes, melodies of texts that belong to the Yamim Noraim, the high holidays. The first one is the Baruch Hu, that happens in the Ma'ariv service. Ma'ariv comes from the word Erev, so we're talking about the evening service. And that Baruch Hu, when you hear that melody, ba da 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 dum, ba 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 da 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 dum, ba 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 da 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 dum, ba da da dee da da dum, ba 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 da 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 dum, bum 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 bum. When you hear that, you know it is the only time that melody occurs is on Rosh Hashanah. And Yom Kippur, if I may say, after the Kol Nidrei, when we do the Baruch Hu for the Kol Nidrei service, it is the same tune. The Shema has its own tune, and we'll talk a little about that. We'll certainly have you hear it. The Great Aleinu, I'm gonna talk about it for sure. Talk about the origination of the text and why it's there and that kind of thing. Hold on, I'm not sure. There we go. So that will be later. We will, after the Shema, we'll go and talk about the Kol Nidrei, which is its own tune, because can you imagine, I remember when I first came here, when Rabbi Rosen first came here, he told me that he knew a different tune for Kol Nidrei, which was Kol Nidrei ve'esarei v'charameh, which obviously that does not work. And we only know the Kol Nidrei not only by the words Kol Nidrei ve'esarei v'charameh, but we know it because of the special melody that it's given. And that special melody, as I said before, comes from medieval sources. And they may take a little snippet from this source and that source, and they put it together. And by the way, between you and me, no cantor sings the Kol Nidrei the same way. It's always done slightly different. They'll put one melody in front of the other, but it just somehow comes together. And that's pretty much, the difference between a composed melody by a specific composer and what are called Sinai tunes is that we can't find one composer who composed them, but we can find really hardcore specific elements of the same melody done in different communities It might not be exactly arranged the same, but it is a different melody. So, okay, so now let's listen to that melody, ba da 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 da, in a kind of a oh, how can I say it? A Rosh Hashanah card from what is called, I believe they're called the Maccabees. And there you go. But did everybody hear the tune? Ba ba da 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 da. Right? Everybody heard it? Good. I take a no answer as you have. So now let's go to a little music, and I'm not sure everybody can read music, but I think you can see the direction of the notes. Ba da 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 da. I mean, you can make it into a nigun, which a nigun is a term for a melody that doesn't have any words to it. So da 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 da, bye bye da 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 da, da 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 da, bye da 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 da, da 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 da, bye bye da da. It's a little high for me, but fine. But here is now the Baruch. Baruch da 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 da, very similar. Et Adonai, da 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 da. See that similarity? Hamevorach. Now it eliminates this stump. Do you see the similarities? Nod. I mean, it's hard to know because some of you don't have your picture on, so I see a black thing, but that's fine. So now the congregation answers. You see this? It goes ba 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 da 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 dum. Watch this. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach. And it then see how it kind of uses a bit of this, a bit of that, and changes the order and stuff like that. That's a Sinai tune. Okay. Now, so we are going to move further. You get the idea. Now here is the Baruch Hu. Ba. I'm going to take a lower pitch if you don't mind. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamevorach. Now, later on in the service, toward the Amidah, is a melody called Michamocha. And watch how they do it on the high holidays. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar ba'kodesh, Hamev Nora tehila, oh yeah, Nora tehila. So you'll notice these notes, you know, obviously there are more syllables to them in the Michamocha, but they are the exact notes. G, G, A, A, G, G, E, E, F, F, etc. See that? Now, what about in a thing called Hama'ariv Aravim? Because after the Baruch Hu, there are two blessings before the Shema, and it's those three paragraphs that come, those paragraphs in the Torah. There are three blessings, and there is something called a Chatimah. Chatimah means at the end of each paragraph, like Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael, there's a blessing there, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Okay, so but what they would do with Baruch Atah Adonai in the high holidays, using that Sinai tune, Baruch Atah Adonai, and then Hamavora Hama'ariv Aravim. Do you guys, do you hear the similarities? That's really important. Okay, good. So we're going to go quick, and hopefully we'll get this done. Now here is an example of a Baruch Hu that is slightly different than the one that I did, but I'm sure you will recognize that initial tune. Ba da 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 da. Now Ozzy Schwartz from the Park Avenue Synagogue makes a shorter Baruch Hu than I normally do. but quite frankly, what I do is not what I've composed. It's what I've looked at the sources, my sources. His sources might be slightly different, but they all, my point is they all honor the Sinai tune code. Okay. So this is a short little snip, but it'll be very, I think, informational. Here we go with the Nigun.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
And we're going to go back to the comparative thing again. So they did, let's try this. They did, and he comes in, Baruch Hu, where is it? Well, something, it's kind of, it's a variant of this, but Baruch, oh, here it is. They so he Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMorach, something like that. He just takes the last two measures and makes a thing out of it rather than going through the whole big Baruch Hu. Okay, we're going to move on now, and now we have the second blessing. I'm just trying to make this shorter here. Okay, here we go. Okay, we have the second blessing, which is Ahavat Olam. Okay, now he's going to use that Sinai tune again. This is the the one right before the Shema, and then he's going to add the Shema, and the Shema is its own melody, and the Shema goes something like this: Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Let's listen to what Cantor Schwartz does.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני.
Here comes the Nigun.
ישראל, שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
So the lesson to learn here is that we have a consistent set of melodic shapes that play a dramatic part in the in kind of establishing an organism of music that is endemic to the Yamim Noraim. Now, and that is specifically with those Sinai tunes. It takes it to a greater technical degree in that way than say Shabbat. Okay, but we can talk about Shabbat too, because Shabbat, or any holiday, or any day of the week, even, that it is called nusach, and there are specific melodic fragments for the whole year that is like if you sing the Amidah for a weekday, it sounds like this, and some of us know it. Some of us who go to the minyan, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Avoteinu, etc., etc. Right? You remember that tune? On Shabbat, that's not the tune. It's Shabbat is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu. Very different melody, but those who come to shul or come on Zoom will know that, oh, we're at, all just by the tune, they'll know it's a weekday or a Shabbat. But as going back to the high holidays, this takes that technical stance much further, in terms of its complexity, and it's a beautiful complexity. I'd like to now talk about the Kol Nidre. So strictly speaking, it's not even a prayer, even though it's commonly, we all know it as a prayer, but it's not a prayer. One of the reasons why it's not a prayer, because most prayers have at the end of the prayer, Baruch atah Adonai. That is called, in technical terms, a chatimah, which means those three words, Baruch atah Adonai, is a stamp in the Siddur saying, okay, this is a prayer. This is a prayer. But this does not have that. So it's an incredibly emotional piece to many people, creating a kind of a dramatic flow, undertone to the Kol Nidre service. And it's written, by the way, in a mixture of Aramaic and Hebrew. Obviously, the name Kol Nidre is taken from the opening words, which means kol, all, nidre, of all vows, all vows. Now, let me just say that this prayer, well, I use that with parentheses, allows the congregant, the fellow Jew, to say, whatever vows I've made, I can annul. Now, but you have to be very careful about that, because it's had a pretty tough history when it comes to that kind of thing, because people can say, who are not Jewish, and there has been anti-Semitic thrust against that prayer, they can say, oh, they can just, swear something and just say, okay, it doesn't matter, I just annulled it. But be very careful, because what this Kol Nidre means, the things that you've promised to yourself, the vows that you've taken to yourself, now that this period is a cleansing period, you can annul those vows. If you take a vow with someone else, if you say, I'm going to pay you X amount of money or whatever, those still count. You can't just, eliminate all of them. That's, that you should know that. Okay. So, okay, I talked about that. I'm just looking here. So this prayer is said really before the Kol Nidre service, because the Kol Nidre service actually starts with the Baruch Hu, as all services do in the evening. Okay. So this is right before the sunset. Everybody gathers in the synagogue, the ark is opened, and as you can probably remember from the last years, with the COVID, who knows, but that people come up to the bima, they take, in some places, only 2 scrolls. In Sephardic synagogues, and I'd say most synagogues now, that we try to take all the scrolls from the ark, and sometimes, I don't know, probably about 7 of them or something like that at Bethel. And so then the people holding the Torah stand beside the cantor and they recite. And let me just say some of the things they recite: by the authority of the heavenly court, obviously in Hebrew and Aramaic, and by the authority of the court down here on the earth, by the permission of one who is everywhere, and by the permission of this congregation, we hold it lawful to pray with avaryanim, with sinners. This invitation to outcasts is not specifically for Kol Nidre, but for the whole of Yom Kippur. It's just obvious that when people who have committed what they would consider a sin join, the occasion is a very powerful one. Now, there is so much to say about the Kol Nidre, and I think what I'm going to do is not talk about that now, but I'm going to talk specifically about the melody. So Kol Nidre is really locked into the melody that we know, that we know. And the melody for the Kol Nidre, by the way, has spread way past the synagogue. Many composers, Max Bruch, for example, who everybody or many people think is Jewish, is not Jewish, but he writes this beautiful cello solo with orchestra Kol Nidre. And what I believe was the tradition before I came here, not that I stopped it for sure, but we had a wonderful violinist playing the Kol Nidre with the organist, that is Gerald Schwartz. And I can't remember his name. But they played the Kol Nidre before I sang it, and they did it for a few years. He was the concertmaster of the Hartford Symphony. So there's a legend that claims that the Kol Nidre is Sinai, which means unchanged since Moses climbed from Mount Sinai, down from Mount Sinai, which is ridiculous. But in the early, even very late time, early 17th century, there's a Rabbi Mordechai Jaffe of Prague, known as the Levush, mentioned that all cantors knew a set melody, which is traditional for the Kol Nidre. Now, actually, he was complaining that the widespread adherence to this melody was hampering his efforts to introduce corrections into the words. But as I said before, every Kol Nidre sung by any cantor I know, each of them has their own variables on it. And so, you have to be careful, you don't have to be careful, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that it's not going to sound the same between one cantor and another. Okay. And we talked about the fact before that a lot of this came from what is called a pneuma, P-N-E-U-M-A, which in ancient Greek means the word for breath. Okay. And in a religious context, it means the spirit or soul. And so the Catholic leadership talks about these in antiphonary, which are Roman Catholic ritual choral books, and they use what they call Gregorian modes in these choral books. And I can get, I better not. I was going to explain exactly what they do in terms of the scale, but let us just say that the Kol Nidre takes snippets from these books from various places, Italy and southern Germany, and other sources too, and then creates the whole of what it is. Okay, what I'd like to do now, again, this is the great Sinai tune of all time, probably. This is the Kol Nidre, and I'm singing it with a wonderful composer by the name of Hugo Weisskell. He's not around anymore, but he wrote many operas for City Opera in New York, and for some reason he asked me to sing this with him in a recording. I don't know if we'll play the whole thing, but we'll give you some of it. And I wanted to also, before we go on, I wanted to play you an example of a Kol Nidre, same text, starting with the Shiva Shel Mala, the inscription right before the Kol Nidre. This is a Sephardi one, and it is absolutely gorgeous. We can't play the whole thing. I told you I was going to play the whole thing of mine, but whatever. This is the Sephardi one. It is accompanied with a drone, but for me, it's incredibly inspiring. Not the Kol Nidre melody. Here we go.
בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל הקדוש הזה אנו מתירים להתפלל את העבריינים כל
Okay, now that for me, it's absolutely stunning. And if I had the class, and maybe I should teach this class with some of you in the room, and maybe we can do it that way from now on. But I would ask you, so what are your thoughts? That's what I would really ask, because I'd be, matter of fact, if anyone wants to open up and tell me what they think, go for it. Yes, no? Okay. Just checking. But I find that to be such a powerful display of the Kol Nidre text. Okay, we're going to move on, and we go into the Avodah service. And this is the central part of the program that we're going to share. The Avodah, oh, no, this is not, excuse me. The Avodah service, this is the last of those Sinai tunes, and the last of the Sinai tunes. If we're going to go back, I want to show you again what they are. Here they are. So we got through the Baruch Hu, the Shema. We skipped the Great Aleinu because that's going to come a little later in terms of an explanation. But the V'hakohanim, that's what we're working on now. And the V'hakohanim is in part of the service called the Avodah service. Avodah means, well, work, but it means service. You are servicing something. The name for the temple ritual is now applied to an essential element of the Musaf service on Yom Kippur. Okay, so we talked about just now the Kol Nidre Yom Kippur, and we will finish the Yom Kippur section, at least for now, with this description of the Avodah service. Yom Kippur was the only time of the year when the Kohen Gadol, the chief Kohen, entered the Holy of Holies, and this is a kind of a relatively, I think, accurate, based on Talmudic text and obviously some archaeology. This is possibly what it looked like, a good possibility. So it was the only time of the year when the Kohen Gadol entered the Holy of Holies. My sense, it was in this building, in the temple. Preparation for that event began a week before Yom Kippur. And in that time, the Kohen Gadol goes to a designated area in temple court, over here or here, to study the sacrificial ritual for Yom Kippur, and that in terms of the heifers and all that stuff, and I'm not going to talk about that. It's a huge subject. But on the day before Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol emerges from his study, maybe through this door, I don't know, and was taken to another chamber in the temple compound, where he meets with the other priests and continues to study. And so on the day of Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, dressed in a gold embroidered garment, he conducts the daily, what needed to be done on Yom Kippur. When he performs the rituals exclusively related with the sacrifices of atonement, and this is where, when the Holy Temple was around, they did sacrifice. That was eliminated when Yochanan ben Zakkai, when the temple was destroyed, and Yochanan ben Zakkai went to other parts of Israel to establish what, in the Greek term, synagogues or shuls, that the townspeople can go to without going to Jerusalem, because it was dangerous to go to Jerusalem in those days. Now, obviously, I'm changing the subject now. When you talk about shalosh regalim, 3 legs, what does shalosh regalim mean? This is change of subject, but I just wanted to show you what the difference is. Shalosh regalim means the 3 holidays. Regal is legs, okay? So shalosh regalim means the 3 holidays where you would take your legs and walk to Jerusalem as a whole nation. Obviously, there was a lot of business done there and all that stuff, but mainly to pray together as a kahal, as a congregation, in the courtyard and in the vicinity of the Holy Temple. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so when he was in the Holy Temple, I know what it was. So they sacrificed animals then. When they couldn't go to Jerusalem, that practice was eliminated. So some of us would say that is a positive thing. But when performing the rituals, when the Holy Temple was around, he would wear a white linen vestment, and during the course of the day, he immerses himself and changes his clothes 5 times and washes his feet and hands 10 times. Okay? And then what he first does is he offers a bull as his personal sin offering to sacrifice. But the main thing is he says, I have sinned. And there is a Sinai tune that obviously was written much after this, but everybody is so locked into those Sinai tunes. Certainly the Central European Ashkenazic Jewry, this tune has remained to this day, and we use that tune in this synagogue. Ve'hakohanim, and some of you might recognize it, but I want to play. This is a very, very well-known cantor. I might as well not joke about it. Is Moshe Kozvitsky, born 1899, 1956, one of the true greats in the cantorial world. Just play a couple of seconds of it, and this is the Sinai tune that every synagogue uses. I want to stop this and point something out to you. If I did, you know, that is very what's the word? Plain chant like, which you can see if you really open your ears up a little, you can see how the influences from the Catholic ritual, meaning Gregorian chant, for example. That's only one kind of chant, but those kind of chants played a strong role in shaping some of these melodies. And if I may say something else about that, those Jews that lived in that area, meaning southern Germany, northern Italy, that area where these tunes originally came from, they were used to that kind of psalmody, that kind of melodic form. And so if they heard a Kol Nidre, especially those Jews that went out of their towns and were involved with businesses with non-Jewish communities, they knew these kind of so-called Gregorian chant-like tunes because they were all over the place. And so if they heard a Kol Nidre with those Gregorian chants, well, yeah, sure, that makes sense. But as time goes on, it's from Mount Sinai. That's what people say. From the 18th century, or excuse me, 19th century, it was all from Mount Sinai, which is beautiful, I think. We're going to move on because this is about an 8-minute piece, and we don't have time. Let me just check what time it is. A second. So now I want to talk. This is the central part of the talk. This is the Rosh Hashanah Musaf Amidah, Malchuyot, Zichronot, Shofarot. I'm going to go rather quickly. We need more time. We need 2 sessions on this thing, but this is the Amidah. Everybody understands the Amidah. Amidah during the weekday is Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloheinu Elohim, right? And then there are 3 blessings that are associated with that first part. Then comes, if it's in the daytime, the Kiddusha, Nekadesh et Shimcha Ba'olam, and then with other texts, Lidor Vador ends it. And then there are 19 blessings, everything ending with a Baruch Atah Adonai. Remember, we talked about that's the formula for a blessing. So there are 19 blessings in the weekday, and all those blessings are blessings of petition. Okay, so you're asking God to give you something, or to help you with something, or to make you smarter, or whatever. On Shabbat, you are not allowed to ask God. It's a day of rest. So there are the 3. Let me start again. In the weekday, so those first 3 blessings, the 19 middle blessings, and then there are, excuse me, 1 second, 3 and 3 is 6. What is 19 minus 6? 13. Yeah, so there are 13 blessings that are petitionary. So the first 3 are not. They're just talking about God and the other stuff. I'm not going to get into it. And then the last 3 that are kind of concluding. But on Shabbat, we can't have those middle 13. So we have 1 talking about Shabbat and not asking God for a thing, but talking about the beauty of Shabbat. On the high holidays, we're talking specifically about the daytime, obviously. There are 9 blessings there are 9 blessings together. The normal first 3 that you would have on a Shabbat and a weekday. The last 3 are the normal 3 that you'd have on a Shabbat and a weekday. But the middle 3 are called Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot. And each of them end with a blessing. Baruch Atah Adonai. We all know that's the formula for a blessing now. And the blowing of the shofar. So usually, as I said, just to lock in, the Musaf prayer, which is the Musaf Amidah, contains 7 blessings on Shabbat. On the weekday, 19. On Rosh Hashanah, there are 9. But what is very beautiful about these blessings, Malchuyot and Zichronot and Shofarot, what's beautiful about anything in the Siddur is that there's an order and a construction to it, okay? So what's in these blessings, the Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot? This is fascinating. Each of these 3 blessings, or these 3 sections, begins with a poetic introduction, okay? Poetic introduction means texts written by rabbinical sources, not from Torah, not from the Haftarah, and not from Ketuvim, like Psalms, okay? Okay, that's the introduction of each section. Then each section, I'm going to say it again, each section has 3 verses from the Torah, another 3 verses from the Nevi'im, that makes 6, another 3 from Ketuvim, like writings, like Proverbs, Psalms, that kind of thing, and then a concluding verse from the Torah for a total of 10 verses. So each of these is such a beautiful construction. Each of them, again, I'll say it again, just that if it's not that you get a test on this, okay? Joking. It opens up with a poetic poem, a poem of some sort, then come in order, 3 from the Torah, 3 verses from the Torah, 3 from the Nevi'im, prophets, and 3 from whatever writings, Psalms, and that kind of thing. Okay, so that you know that's total of 10 in each section. So before we get to the central part of the Amidah that we will talk about, I want to play, just talk a little about what happens before those 3 sections. So you say, you know, Baruch Baruch Atah Adonai, and that's a Sinai tune too, from the opening of the Amidah, and then we have a magnificent poem called Unetanet Tokef, okay, meaning Unetanet, we shall give Tokef, holiness, to this day. This is chanted, this is sung prior to the Kiddusha area of the Amidah, you know, Nekadesh Shimcha Ba'olam. There are legends concerning the origin of this piyut, this liturgical poem. This was a poem, Unetanet Tokef. We don't know who wrote it, but what it was definitely certain is this poem is gorgeous. He was very gifted. And the structure of the poem and its language suggests that it was composed during the Byzantine period. So the concepts on which this Unetanet Tokef is based come from Jewish and a Jewish apocalyptic literature and parallel Christian writings based on similar sources. I guess the most famous would be something like the Dies Irae, the Day of Wrath, which is obviously found in the Requiem Mass. If you want to hear a Dies Irae that is powerful, obviously Beethoven has it in his Missa Solemnis, Verdi has it in his Requiem, yeah, and obviously Mozart in his, and 20th century composer who wrote one of those things is Benjamin Britten, if you know that name, but we can talk about that another time. But you know, what's different about that and the Jewish one is that the Jewish is not the final day of judgment, our Unetanet Tokef, but it's much more immediate. It's kind of the yearly day of judgments. The yearly day of judgment, not the thing to end the world, okay? We shall ascribe holiness to this day, for it is awesome and terrible. I'm just reading parts of it. And the seal of each person is there. The great shofar is sounded. A small, still voice is heard. On Rosh Hashanah, and this is really something that really touches people, certainly me and everybody, I think. On Rosh Hashanah, it is inscribed, and on Yom Kippur, it is sealed. How many shall pass away, and how many shall be born? Who shall live, and who shall die? Who shall perish by water? Who shall by fire? Who by earthquake? I'm skipping. Who by earthquake? Who by plague? Who shall have rest, and who shall wander? Who shall be at peace, and who shall be pursued? Who shall be exalted? Who shall be brought low? Who shall become rich? Who shall not? But repentance, prayer, and righteousness avert the severe decree. So, you know, there's the positive ones, but if you have repentance, prayer, and righteousness on your side, you can turn those negative ones away. And by the way, these words lead directly into the Kiddusha, okay? So this is not a day of suffering without hope, no matter what one has done, says the poet of Unetanet Tokef, the severe decree, the penalty of death can be averted. Okay, so just one last thing before we do a little music. I'm going to have to stop before I originally wanted, but here we go. It's said that it was recited or written by a Rabbi Amnon of Mainz in the 11th century, who had failed to reject a proposal of apostasy immediately, meaning to go to another religion from Judaism. And instead he asked for 3 days to consider it. So 3 days happened. And when he did not agree to give up his faith, he was taken away and tortured brutally. And it was the day of Rosh Hashanah. And he asks his students to take him to the synagogue, where he interrupted the service and recited this prayer, the Unatan Tokev, to sanctify the name of God. When he finishes, he passes away. And so, if that's true or not, but it's a great story. Here are two Unatan Tokevs. This first one is with Shai Abramson, who is the chief cantor of the Israeli army. This is a modern version, and why don't we listen to it? At least the first few seconds of it.
ונתנה תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום, ובוא תינשא מלכותך, ויכון בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו באמת, ותשב עליו באמת. אמת כי אתה הוא דיין. אמת כי אתה הוא דיין ומוכיח, ויודע ועד, וזוטב וחותם וסופר ומונה, ותזכור כל הנשכחות, ותפתח את ספר הזיכרונות, ומאליו יקרא וחותם יד כל אדם בו. ובשופר גדול ייתקע, וכל דממה דקה יישמע, ומלאכים יחפצו, וכאילו רעדה יאחזו, ומלאכים יחפצו, וכאילו רעדה יאחזו. ושופר גדול ייתקע, וכל דממה דקה יישמע, ומלאכים יחפצו, וכאילו רעדה יאחזו, ומלאכים יחפצו, וכאילו רעדה יאחזו. ויאמרו הנה יום הדין, לפקוד על צבא מרום בדין, כי לא יזכו בעיניך בדין. וכל באי עולם יעברו לפניך כבני מרום, כבקרת רועה אדום, מעביר צאנו תחת שבטו. וכל באי עולם יעברו לפניך כבני מרום, כבקרת רועה אדום, מעביר צאנו תחת שבטו. כן תעביר ותספור ותמנה ותפקוד נפש כלך, ותחתוך קצבה לכל בריאה, ותכתוב בגזר דינם. משול כפרס הנשבע, וחציר יבש וחצי צנובר וחצל לובר וכענן קלה וכרוח נושבת וכאבק פורח וכחלום
Okay, I played the whole thing. I'm not going to go through everything that I did today, but I wanted you to see that. By the way, Shai Abrams is a really nice guy. I did a concert with him in Beverly Hills. I think it was in 2014. And he's a real pleasure to work with. He's takes his role very seriously. But back to this Unetana Tokef, you can see how it is a very powerful well, both text and the melody by Yair Rosenblum, I believe is his name. Yair Rosenblum. It speaks to the concern of those in the defense forces. You know, who is going to live, who is going to die, who, you know, powerful. I want to then play this one. This is with a great cantor and his son. The man that you see in the picture is a man by the name of Naftali Herstig. I had the opportunity, the incredible good fortune and blessing to sing in his choir when I was in Israel, when I studied to become a cantor. And, you know, he wasn't my private teacher, but man, did he teach me a lot just by, you know, when I would come into the synagogue on a Shabbat morning and I tell the story a lot, I would, you know, with all the crazy, the wars and the this and the that, you know, I would say the next 2.5 hours are going to be perfect, or the next about 3 hours. And singing with him was like an angelic experience. Now, next to him is a little boy, and I will tell you who that boy is after it's a very short little snippet. This is a more of a traditional Unetana Tokef with an orchestration that's a little large for my taste, but let's just listen. Unetana Tokef by Emanuel Birnbaum, lived in the 19th century.
Unetana Tokef, Kedushat Hayom. נורא ואיום. נורא ואיום. כי נעשה מלכותך וייכון בחסד כסבך.
Etc. That little boy, by the way, is probably, you know, one of the three great cantors in the world today. His name is Natani Herstig. He's the cantor in where is that? Hampton, you know, the Hampton Synagogue in Long Island. You know, so we went to Australia together, he and his father and myself and a whole bunch of other people, including, by the way, those of you who know Cantor Brian Mayer from Providence. He came with us. I kind of dragged him along, and I think he's happy I did. Anyway, so I was, had Natani on my knee at that point because he was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, and now he's a big boy. He's really something else. He's really something else. And his father will always be, and I mean this completely, an incredible inspiration to me as a cantor and musician. So moving on. Before we get to, we're still not in that middle section of the Amidah. I need about 20 more minutes. This is a new version of a piece that comes right before the Malchiyot section, a piece called Chamol al Ma'asecha, and it's a kind of an introspection, kind of says, have compassion on your handiwork and be glad with your handiwork. May those who take refuge in you say, when you vindicated those born by you, O Master, may you be sanctified upon all your handiwork. If you really look at the texts of these prayers on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they're just majestic. There's no other words to say it. And, just sitting there, I'm hoping what you get out of this little chat is a little more of the geography of what goes on, but we need more than one. But here we go. This is a modern version. I love the way he approaches the text, this gentleman. And here we go. One second, I don't know, it's not working. Etc. It's a beautiful melody. And now we come to the Malchiyot Zichronot Shofrot. So the poetic introduction to Malchiyot is called Aleinu L'Shabeach. And this is the first time that it appears in a Jewish liturgical text, not at the end of the service like we do, that is, at the end of it, thinking of a person singing it now, but with the Aleinu, you know what I'm talking about. But the Aleinu L'Shabeach is the opening, and again, I'm going to say is the poetic introduction. Remember we talked about this? This is Malchuyot, the first of those three sections, the Aleinu L'Shabeach, and we have a wonderful cantor singing it and it goes like this: Aleinu L'Shabeach. Sinai tune, but then he adds that original nigun from the evening before. Da, 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 da. See how we mix and patch and everything to create a unified whole. Let's listen to it. It's a short section, I believe. Yeah, about 2 minutes, something like that. Here we go. By the way, I'm sorry. Just to be 100% sure, this is the wonderful and born, I don't know if he's born in the city, but he certainly comes from this town. And I knew him when he was 16-year-old, Gideon Zellemeyer, Cantor Gideon Zellemeyer from Montreal. Here we go. Remember, here's the Nigun. We are obliged to adore the Master of all, to acclaim the greatness of the Creator who has distinguished us among the nations and assigned us a destiny unique from that of other peoples. We bend the knee, bow, and give thanks to the Sovereign of sovereigns, the Holy, Blessed One. So, the text is certainly powerful, but also I wanted you to make mention, that's a beautiful, wonderful male choir that he has in Montreal. Really great work that he does with that. I have to say that. Okay, so that's the first opening of the Malchuyot. Now we go to the Zichronot, and this poetic introduction to Zichronot is Ata Zocher Maaseh Olam. You remember, Zikaron, excuse me, remembrance. So Zichronot are remembrances. You remember the creation, how you created the world, which emphasizes Rosh Hashanah as the day of judgment, on which God calls to mind all things past and present. And then the 10 verses come, the three from the Torah, the 3 of the prophets, and the 3 of the Psalms or whatever else that the writings, Proverbs. So, but we're going to go to the prophetic section now. And this is a piece called Zacharti Lach, or Ve'al Yadei Avadecha, which starts out, comprised of 3 verses. The 3 verses are 2 from Jeremiah and 1 from Ezekiel. The first one, and it's really 3 parts. Go proclaim to Jerusalem, God says, I remember the affection of your youth, your love. Actually, I'm not even going to tell you because I embedded it into the PowerPoint thing. Here we go. Wonderful Cantor Bloemendahl from Amsterdam. This is the second part. Third part. A really, really beautiful piece. I mean, powerful, um, um, by Louis Lewandowski. I'm highlighting him today. And there's more I had intended to play, but I will give, if we can just do two more pieces, that would be great. So that's the central section of Zichronot. The poetic introduction to the last section, Shofrot, begins with the words Atani gleta ba'anan kevodecha. You reveal yourself in a cloud of glory, referring to the revelation at Sinai, excuse me, when the sound of the shofar was heard with thunder and lightning. And then it leads to the usual 10, not usual, the 10 verses that occupy the other, the other section, the other two sections. But what we're going to do now is not the opening poetic section, not either the Torah portions or the Haftarah portions, but from Ketuvim. And we have in Ketuvim Psalms. And this psalm is Psalm 150. This is, I think, a pretty good performance with our choir and orchestra at one of our concerts. But why not? And celebrate Bethel while we do it. Here we go. Psalm 150. that was a pretty exciting performance. I wanted to do another section on Yom Kippur, but if you allow me to give you a, what do they call those things when they do movies? They give you a, I can't think, it's not introduction, it's another word, but I want to do one thing about Yom Kippur. And the reason why I want to do is I put it together last night. So I want to, what am I going to say? It's a 2-minute thing, but it is called Shema Kolenu. And this is a wonderful, wonderful passage toward the end of the both the Kol Nidre service and during the daytime. It is, we did this many, many years ago, probably around 1997, 96. And this is with, I don't know if some of you might remember Cantor Don Gurney, and I had another cantor with me, a wonderful baritone by the name of Scott Sokol. And I actually sang the bass part, and with Gerald Schwartz conducting the orchestra. If those who might remember that name, he was my first music director. So again,
Are you talking about a rain check?
I'm sorry?
You were looking about the movie ticket? Are you talking about a rain check?
Well, yeah, I don't want to go further than this. Maybe you might fall asleep. But yeah, no, I wasn't thinking rain check, but when you do a movie, you do not a preview, but something like that. But this is just a 2-minute piece.
Oh, coming attractions.
It's a
Yeah, there-
trailer.
What, say that again?
Coming
trailer.
attractions.
Okay, someone else said something.
A trailer.
Yeah. That was it. Here we go. And a very 2-minute thing. And this is I think a very beautiful piece by someone by the name of Joseph Drexler, who was commissioned by, he's not Jewish, the composer of this piece. It's amazing. Incredible piece of music. Commissioned by a guy by the name of Solomon Zolzer, who was one of the great cantors of the 19th century in Vienna. Here we go. And you'll recognize the speaker.
Al tashlichenu. Do not cast us off, old or young, feeble or hopeful. Do not send us away unanswered, for there is nothing more thunderous than your silence, nothing more terrifying than your absence. If you too shall leave us, to whom shall we plead our cause? Who will answer us? Shema Kolenu.
that synagogue was destroyed. It was a huge, huge synagogue, and it was destroyed in 1940. I don't exactly know. It's 44, 45 in World War II. In 1911, they were talking about plans to rebuild it. I was there 2 years ago. Nothing was happening yet, but I don't know. So, I've kind of built a time for myself to try to rescue some of that music that was destroyed. And this is one of those pieces. So it's pretty dear to my heart. As far as more lectures at this time, I'm thinking we might want to think about it because, yeah. But I want to thank you all for coming. It's really meaningful me to have people sharing with me what I love. And Shana Tova to all of you. And
Shana Tova.
Jeanette, thank you.
Tova.
Cantor.
take care, everybody. We'll see you during the holidays. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.